The year was 2010, and it was a bit of a rough time for me when it came to playing video games. I didn't have a job, and so I didn't have any money. I had to trade in or sell a lot of my video games to make money, and video rental stores were becoming obsolete, and thus I wasn't really able to rent anything. It was tough, and we've all been there. I had to be super careful with every single game I bought or rented, and because of this, so many games passed me by. Some of the biggest games of the year, for me personally, were Red Dead Redemption, Dead Rising 2, and the big one, Dragon Age Origins. I stopped following a lot of gaming news around that time as well, mostly because there was no point in me getting excited for something I just couldn't have. Had I paid attention, though, I would have learned about Fallout New Vegas coming later that year. When it did hit store shelves in October, I actually had no idea. It wasn't until early December that I found out. It came as a complete shock to me. I was browsing my local video game rental store when I found it. However, I wasn't super excited. Sure, I wanted to play it, but Fallout 3 left me feeling a little down. I had a good time with it, yes, and I would even say I loved my time with it. However, it wasn't the Fallout I was really expecting. It never met my expectations. This time was different. This time, my expectations were realistic. I was fully expecting a sequel to Fallout 3. I was expecting more of what it offered me. I was ready for a Bethesda game. I rented the game right there on the spot, went home, and prepared for a long night of gaming. I never really paid too much attention to logos flying across the screen of a game. I never gave it much thought. I never even noticed the name Obsidian. If I even noticed, I sure as heck wouldn't have known who they were, because I never got to play their earlier titles until much later. And to top it off, I had no clue the people who founded the company were those from Black Isle Studios, the developers behind Fallout 2. My night with Fallout New Vegas was amazing. I was hooked. The whole thing had a different feel than before. I was having a great time exploring, doing side quests, and all of that RPG goodness. My expectations had been surpassed, and then some. I was on top of the world. But bad news was on the horizon. You know, they say for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I found that out the hard way. I was cruising through the wasteland when suddenly I stopped moving. At first I was confused, but seconds later realized my controller had just run out of power. I grabbed the cable, plugged it in, and continued playing for another 10 to 15 minutes or so when it died again. I unplugged the cable, plugged it back in, and then I was back on my adventure for another 10 minutes or so, and then the controller died again. This time, it was dead for real. I took it apart to try to fix it, getting some success, but it really had given up the ghost. This was a problem. As I said earlier, I was in a tight place when it came to money, so buying another controller, even used, was tricky. I scrounged whatever money and games I could, and I asked my dad if he wouldn't mind just stopping off at EB after work and just picking up a controller for me. He agreed, and the next day, he returned home with a new controller and some leftover cash. I was surprised, since I thought I'd only barely have enough money to cover the cost of a controller, and that's when I opened the bag. Have you ever played with a third-party controller before? I'll bet a fair few of you have at some point or another. You'll know how interesting they can be. Some won't work. Some will die not long after you buy them. They all feel wrong, and the shape of the controllers and the button presses, sometimes there's lag. They all just feel bad. That's what my dad had bought me. I mean, bless the guy, he was trying to do me a solid after seeing the price of a new or even used PlayStation 3 controller. However, when life gives you lemons and all of that. So I opened it, I returned to playing New Vegas, and boy oh boy, was it unique. The lag was bad, and the analog sticks were just glorified D-pads. It wouldn't let me move the camera diagonally. It was a complete mess. I did my best to put up with it, but you can only die so many times and just know it wasn't your fault and completely lose your mind. I asked my dad if he wouldn't mind returning it and picking up another one, and he did. This time, it was another third-party controller, and it pretty much did the same thing as the first. This time, I went with my dad to return it and pick up what I actually wanted. EB Games, however, had other plans. They refused to give me a refund. I'm sure it had something to do with their policies, but in short, they were accusing me of trying to rip them off somehow. I had no choice but to trade it in, and they only gave me half the price that I actually paid. My dad, he felt bad and thankfully chipped in the remaining half so I could get a used PlayStation 3 controller. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, I had to return Fallout New Vegas back to the video game rental store on that same day. I was going to re-rent it, but for some reason they just wouldn't let me, and I'd have to wait another 3 days before I could rent it again. But when it rains, it pours, pals, and pour it did. The place where I lived at the time wasn't the... What's the nice way of saying this? It wasn't the nicest of neighborhoods. Let's say the video game rental store had its fair share of thefts. People would rent out a movie or a game and just never return it. And can you guess what game was stolen? Yep, New Vegas. That's right, 3 days later, it was gone. In those 3 days, I was actually staying at my mother's house. While I was there at the house, my father had some of his girlfriend's family over at, my house. And when I got home, just after learning New Vegas was gone, I came home to a broken PlayStation 3. Yep, you heard that right. One of the people who was visiting at the time was a child who thought it would be awesome to go into a room they were told not to go into. And hey, while in said room, why not put their soda on top of my PlayStation? I mean, what could go wrong? It wouldn't be until another 15 years later that I finally got the chance to play Fallout New Vegas again. Fallout 4 was coming out, and I thought it would be a really good time to finally finish Fallout New Vegas. I picked up a copy of the Game of the Year edition, and I went to work. My feelings never changed. I was just as enthralled to explore the Mojave Wasteland as I was 15 years ago. It's been around 6 years or so since I last played Fallout New Vegas, and it begs the question, will I feel the same way? Did Obsidian Entertainment actually make the Fallout 3 I was looking for? What did they change from Fallout 3? Should you play it? Well, to answer those questions and more, take a journey with me as I explore Obsidian Entertainment's 2010 release of Fallout New Vegas. And of course, like I do with every single thing I look at, I'll be spoiling the entire main story of the game, so spoilers. You've been warned. So, this is a massive disclaimer. My Fallout New Vegas video, this amazing video you are currently watching, is a little bit different from my regular videos. I know you love it when I sit you down, toss a warm blanket over you, pop some corn for you, crack open a nice cold drink for you, and soothe you with my voice as I tell you a story. I know you love it, but I can't really do that today. What I'm trying to say here is that my game broke, much like the Daggerfall game did when I checked that game out. The New Vegas story ends abruptly, but it doesn't end there. I'll get to it a little bit later, but let's just say I've learned a lot from this experience, and I wanted you to know now rather than later so it doesn't take you by surprise. Okay, on with the story for real this time. Life out in the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter. It's hot, tough, and sometimes short-lived. And tonight, we're about to learn the latter for ourselves. As we open our eyes and begin to focus, we hear talking. We look down at our hands bound together with rope before looking up at a man in a checkered suit. He pulls out a casino chip from his jacket and rather bluntly tells us that we've made our last delivery. He puts the chip back into his pocket and pulls out a gun. We quickly glance at the gun and glance back at him. The man then aims the gun towards us and pulls the trigger. We awake. Our eyes slowly adjust to the light as messages slap us in the face. Small DLC goblins also put little items into our pockets. Ah, how kind! We slowly sit up and a mustachioed man explains that we've been asleep for a few days. He then asks our name to see if we can even remember it. Martin, we reply. The man smiles and introduces himself as Doc Mitchell, and then welcomes us to the place called Goodsprings. After randomly picking our looks, learning how special we are, and getting a full breakdown of our psyche, Dr. Mitchell explains that he was able to remove the bullet from our brain after we were brought in by a metal fella named Victor. Doc Mitchell further explains that he found a note on us which said that we were a courier who was supposed to deliver a platinum poker chip to somebody in New Vegas. We don't have that chip on us when we were brought in, but we do know who has it. After Doc Mitchell gives us a Pip-Boy 3000 and some clothes, because I guess we were currently naked, he sends Martin off to meet up with a young woman named Sunny Smiles here in Goodsprings, who might be able to offer us some help with the Mojave Wasteland survival. He also tells us that we should speak with Victor. He might be able to give us a few more details on what happened to us. And with that, Martin was free. When exiting, Martin rather quickly is able to spot the metal fella, Victor. Victor is a robot, as you might clearly be able to tell, and he doesn't offer much in the way of information, but he explains that he was out late one night when he noticed a group up at the graveyard. He knew that they were up to no good and waited until they left. Victor then went to check to see if we were still alive, and sure enough, we were, and he took us to the doctor. And that's about as much information as we're going to get out of our good friend Victor here. Martin continues further into town and meets up with Sunny Smiles. She is happy enough to show us what she knows. She teaches us how to shoot, kill, and make healing items as well. However, it's at this point Martin begins to suspect that that bullet might have done more damage to his brain than he thought. Unless that's how all dogs normally look and he just forgot. After teaching us the ropes, Sunny points us in the direction of a local bar owner named Trudy, who might be able to help us with information about who shot us. Martin enters Trudy's bar and spots her and some unknown man having a little bit of an argument. After the grumpy fellow leaves, Trudy tells Martin that that was Joe Cobb, a member of a gang known as the Powder Gangers. He is on the lookout for a man named Ringo here in town. Trudy pauses and looks Martin up and down and smiles. She knows why he's here and what he wants, and offers to tell him what she knows about the group who shot him if, there's always that if he helps the town out with their Powder Ganger problem. Martin agrees to help, and Trudy explains a little more about the situation. So this Ringo guy came into town about a week ago, begging for help. He explained that he was the sole survivor of a Caravan raid, and that some bad guys were now after him. Trudy thought he was just a little in shock or something, and gave him a place to rest. Turns out, he wasn't in shock at all. He really had survived an attack, and now that group, these Powder Gangers, wanted him dead. Trudy tells Martin where to find Ringo, and we set off. Martin eventually tracks Ringo down in an old building, but before he goes in, however, Martin spots a vending machine for Sunset Sarsaparilla. He opens it up, grabs a bottle, and takes a sip. That bullet really must have killed Martin because he was sure nothing so incredible could be in this world. It had to be in the next. He was in love at first taste, and Martin was now hooked. Sunset Sarsaparilla. He will never forget that for as long as he lives. After drinking 3 more bottles of the heavenly nectar of Sunset Sarsaparilla, Martin began to remember why he even came to this building in the first place. Ringo. As Martin enters the building, Ringo trains his gun on him. Ringo asks Martin what he's even doing there, and Martin explains that he was there to deal with the situation. Ringo is fully aware this Joe Cobb guy is in town looking for him, but he isn't the issue. It's all of his friends. Ringo wants to gather the full force of the town to fight off the Powder Gangers, and it makes sense. Strength in numbers, right? Martin agrees to speak with the people in town. It takes a little bit of convincing, but Martin is able to sweet-talk the people into town to band together and fight the Powder Gangers, to not only protect Ringo, but show that the town of Good Springs isn't to be messed with. Once Joe Cobb and the Powder Gangers get wind of the situation, they rush into town, shooting and throwing dynamite, but they're no match for the combined force of Martin, Ringo, and the Good Spring Avengers. I just felt like they needed a cool team name. Anyway, with the problem now solved, Ringo thanks us, and Trudy finally coughs up the information we need about our attackers. The man who shot us wore a bright white and black checkered suit, and he was also accompanied by a group of Great Khans, a group of raiders here in the Mojave. Why they only took the platinum chip off of Martin is still anybody's guess. Trudy further explains that the group was most likely headed towards the town of Primm, and with no other information to go off of, Martin sets out towards the town of Primm. He needs to find the man who shot us, the man in the checkered suit. As Martin approaches Primm, a trooper from the NCR, the New California Republic, stops him. The trooper warns him that Primm is off limits due to a group of powder gangers overrunning the town. Of course it's the powder gangers. He suggests talking with their leader, Lieutenant Hayes, if we want to know more about the situation. After tracking down and speaking with Lieutenant Hayes, Martin is quickly able to learn that the NCR is unable to retake Primm for a combination of reasons, mostly a lack of troops, supplies, and bureaucracy. We are also told that most of the town is actually held up within the casino. Now, this is a problem for Martin. He needs to speak with the citizens of Primm to learn more about the man in the checkered suit. He can't afford to waste more time than he already has. Martin has always held the belief that to get anywhere in life, you must be willing to do things for yourself. And if the NCR can't take out the powder gangers, then he will. Martin approaches the town of Primm, locks and loads his fists of fury, and gets to work. Making his way to the casino is child's play. The group left outside offers little resistance for Martin. Upon slaying his foes, Martin enters a building close by and finds a broken down little robot. After a little tinkering, however, Martin is able to bring the little robot back to life. This is Eddie. Eddie doesn't talk much. In fact, he never talks at all, which suits Martin just fine. He loves talking and telling stories, and what he really needs most in his life is just somebody who'll listen, and listening is Eddie's specialty. Martin now has a new friend. Eddie and Martin head into the casino, and the moment they walk through the front doors, an older gentleman named Jonathan, it's not Jonathan, look, it's right there, Johnson Nash speaks with Martin. Turns out, this guy sort of knows us. Sort of, maybe, possibly, not really. He works for the company we do at least, the Mojave Express. We told him about the package we were supposed to deliver, and Nash explains that the job was actually a bit of a weird one. Turns out, a cowboy robot, that we kind of know, was the one who wanted 6 items delivered. Random items as well, like a pair of dice, a chess piece, that platinum poker chip, and so on. Now, Nash did get word that the other 5 jobs were completed and that only ours wasn't, because of course it wasn't. However, that wasn't where the strangeness ended. It turns out that Martin wasn't even the original courier. It's my accent, I know. So many Americans are going to be making fun of me. Courier and courier. Courier. I apologize. I've gotten so much hate for that. I apologize. It's kind of like sauce and sauce. Did you tell which was which? Okay, here's it again. Ready? Sauce and sauce. There you go. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah. We weren't the original courier who was hired to deliver this platinum chip. The original guy turned it down after learning our name. He told Nash to let us, Courier 6, have the job. When Martin asks Nash if he knows anything about the group of men who shot him and stole his package, Nash points us in the direction of the town deputy, Deputy Beagle. Asking him for the information might prove a little bit tricky, seems the Powder Gangers have got him hostage within the town's hotel. Martin smiles and Eddie giggles, well, if he could giggle anyway. When Nash asks what's so funny, Martin tells him that saving the town was part of the reason he was even here, so he might as well punch two birds with one punch, I guess, and save the town deputy. And with that, Martin and Eddie need like a cool team name. How about the Sinister Six? No, the Raging Cajun. No, that doesn't even make sense. Oh, I know. The Lone Duo. It's perfect, and I see absolutely no issues with that name whatsoever. Now, with a sweet name, the Lone Duo down a sunset sarsaparilla and march into the Bison Steve Hotel. Now, I wish I could sit here and tell you a cool story filled with amazing fights and character arcs and so on, but no. Saving Deputy Beagle and clearing out the hotel was, well, it was easy as wham, bam, and pow. They can't all be winners, I guess, so oh well. With Deputy Beagle saved, and the town now free of the Powder Gangers, Martin is finally able to get some information out of the deputy. It turns out the Great Khans, along with our checkered suit friend, did indeed pass by Primm and were apparently overheard saying that they were going to a place called Novac, and that they were going to get there by passing through another small town called Nipton. So, it would seem our next stop is Novac. Oh, and before leaving the town of Primm, the Lone Duo sets them up with a new town sheriff, an ex-con ex-sheriff named Myers. He seemed like the right person for the job, and I was going to write a whole story about the event, but then I realized how uneventful the trip was, and about the only thing eventful about the trip was picking this jalapeno. So there you go. The Lone Duo made a quick pit stop on their way to Novac. The place was an NCR outpost, not too far away from Primm. They thought it was best to repair any gear and pick up a few supplies. Now, the outpost itself wasn't too much to write home about, aside from a rather impressive metal sculpture out the front. But while exploring, the two came across a rather pale NCR snipper. That's right, I said snipper. Her name was apparently Ghost, and she had a bit of a problem. The problem was that she spotted some smoke in the distance at the small town of Nipton. Now, smoke is never a good sign, and she knew something was going on, but couldn't leave her post to check it out. And that's where our Lone Duo came into the picture. She asked us if we'd be willing to go down to the town and see what's just going on. Martin is already going that way, and agrees to help. As our two intrepid heroes got closer to Nipton, they could tell something was definitely wrong. Red flags with a bull were raised high in the air. The fires raged, and houses were more damaged than normal. A man ran up to the two, screaming with glee how he had won the lottery. The two were confused. The elated man wasn't making much sense. When questioned about what lottery he had won, he only replies with the lottery. After that, he took off down the road, laughing and screaming as he did. Progressing further into the town, that's where the true horror begins to unravel. There were people lashed to crucifixes, left to slowly die. Others were beheaded or burned to death. And that's just what was in sight. Who knew what lied beyond a door in some of those buildings? Martin has no time to really fully take it all in before a group of men exit a building in front of him and begin to approach. A man wearing a coyote skin headdress, clearly their leader, stands apart from them, eyeing Martin down. The man approaches and speaks. His words are cold and blunt, with no hint of emotion. He tells Martin that he has nothing to fear from him. He won't be put on a cross like all the others. In fact, he's glad Martin came by. He wants Martin to spread the word of what happened in this town. Caesar's legion taught a lesson to the people here. He explains that the town was wicked, debased, and corrupt in the eyes of the legion. This man from Caesar's legion continues explaining that they knew of the town's reputation for offering its services such as prostitution to anybody willing to pay. Recently, the town mayor extended its services to the powder gangers at night and the NCR troops in the day. And so the man from the Legion offered the town mayor a deal. Bring both sides into town so they could be dealt with by Caesar's Legion. In exchange, the folks of the town will be given a lot of caps. The mayor agrees, and he brought the powder gangers and the NCR troops into town. Once they had arrived, Caesar's Legion sprung their trap. Too late for the people to realize that they themselves were also caught in the trap. Everybody was gathered into the town hall, told their crimes and what was going to happen to them based on those crimes. They'd be put into a lottery in which the winner would just be set free. Each person held their ticket close, praying it would be the salvation they needed, as one by one each person was hauled away and punished based on those crimes. Loved ones ignored each other, friends turned on friends, but not once did anybody stand and fight, even though the group outnumbered the Legion troops. Each person stayed quiet, clutching that ticket and hoping. The man with the coyote headdress finishes, turns, and leaves. Their deed is done. Martin and Eddie take one more look around town for any survivors, and once they were done, they returned back to the NCR snipper and reported the terrifying news. She explains that the NCR is at war with a group known as Caesar's Legion. Caesar's Legion is run by a man called, well, Caesar, or Kaiser as they call him. A few years back, the two groups clashed in a massive battle at Hoover Dam. Many died, but eventually the NCR won the battle and pushed the Legion back across the Hoover Dam to the other side of the Colorado River. Each side wants to take control of the Mojave for their own reasons, and to do that requires full control of the Hoover Dam. Now, normally the NCR are able to keep the Legion on the other side of the river, but the fact that they made it so far inland, all the way to Nipton, is scary. It means that the NCR doesn't have the manpower or the resources to keep the Legion at bay. In fact, we began to see that back in Primm. Things aren't looking so great for the NCR, and as they continue to stretch themselves thin, spreading across the Mojave, the Legion grows in power. It's a tricky situation, to be sure, and to make matters even worse, there's talk across all of the Mojave that Caesar's Legion will once again strike at the NCR stationed at Hoover Dam, and another massive battle will take place. For now, however, Martin can't think about that and must continue across the wasteland on his journey towards Novac. After arriving in Novac and admiring the large dinosaur, Martin bumped into Victor, the robot who saved us back in Goodsprings. Victor tells Martin that he suddenly got the urge to head to New Vegas, and he doesn't know why he got that urge, but he decided to follow it all the same. Martin bids Victor farewell and the two part ways. Now, it's been a long and eventful trip so far. We've traveled from Goodsprings to Primm, Primm to Nipton, and Nipton to here. Martin thinks it would be wise to rest a bit and perhaps get a room to sleep in. Inside the hotel reception, Martin meets up with the hotel owner, Jenny Mae Crawford. Or Jeannie Mae? I think it was Jeannie Mae. Hang on. Would you mind telling everybody your name, please?
I'm Jeannie Mae.
Thanks. She's a friendly lady who is more than willing to let us rent a room for the evening. Martin also figures that while he's here, he might as well just ask her and see if she saw the men in the checkered suit pass through, and it turns out she actually had seen him. He and the Khans stayed in Novac for a very short time, and while here, some of those Khans spoke to a man who lives here, Manny Vargas. Martin thanks the kind lady for her time and tracks down Manny. Manny seems like a nice enough guy, laid back, but serious when he needs to be. When asked if he knows anything about the man in the checkered suit, he tells Martin he does. And he'd be happy to give us that information, if we do him a little favor first, because of course, Manny explains that Novac is a nice place and it's his home, but the only way the town really stays afloat is trading scrap metal and junk to traders who pass through. There's a place close by, an old rocket test site. Most of the folks scavenge for scrap there, but recently a group of ghouls moved in and refused to let anybody inside. Not only that though, but every so often, especially recently, a bunch of feral ghouls have been wandering into Novac and have to be shot. Now, Manny himself would normally go there and deal with the situation, but Caesar's Legion has been causing all sorts of trouble on this side of the Colorado River, as we just saw. In fact, just recently, they took a small settlement nearby, Nelson. The town has been on alert since some of the legionaries have come from Nelson into Novac, but thanks to the town snippers, Manny and Boone, they don't get too close. No. Anyway, still, Manny can't leave and tasks Martin with going down to the building and dealing with the ghouls in any way he seems fit. After that, he'll gladly give us the information we seek. And with that, Martin pumps up his kicks and heads to the RepCon test site. The road to the RepCon test site was filled with feral ghouls that were quickly and easily dispatched. Now, the outside of the building was, well, it was like all other buildings across the Mojave, run down and had seen better days, but the rocket in the center just out the front was quite the sight. Martin had never seen anything like that before. Still, he wasn't here to take in all the sights. He was here to clear out the ghouls. Inside the building, Martin was scared half to death by the intercom crackling to life as a voice, clearly belonging to a ghoul, tells Martin to head to the back of the building so they can speak face to face. Martin does as he's told and slowly makes his way to the back of the building and up some stairs. At the back of the building, Martin bumps into a man named Chris. Chris here believes he's a ghoul. Martin tries to point out the fact that he is indeed a human, but Chris isn't having any of it and directs Martin to speak with somebody named Jason, their leader. Martin continues further into the room and eventually does find Jason. Jason here, as you might be able to clearly see, is a ghoul, but not just any ghoul. He's known as a glowing one. Martin has never seen a non-feral glowing one before and actually found Jason rather interesting. Jason here asks Martin what he's doing here exactly, and Martin explains that the feral ghouls have been wandering into Novac and attacking people. Jason sighs and rightly assumes that the people in Novac shot and killed the ghouls. Jason continues and explains that the ghouls were actually members of his flock, even if they had lost their minds. He tells Martin that they'd normally be locked up within the building, but the demons in the basement must have set them loose somehow. In fact, that's the reason Jason wanted to speak with Martin in the first place. He wants our help to rid them of these demons in the basement. When asking more about these demons, Jason tells Martin that they just appeared one day and were, well, invisible. Some of the ghouls fought back. I'm still thinking about that joke. The demons. Why do I make myself laugh? Okay, some of the ghouls fought back and even managed to kill a few of those demons, but were ultimately pushed back to the second floor of the building. Jason explains that after they were forced back, a voice on the intercom ranted and raved at them. Most of what the voice said was just insane ramblings and didn't make much sense, but what they could figure out that was making sense was that whoever these demons were, they wanted the ghouls to stay out of the way and promised not to hurt them as long as they stayed on the second floor. They'd leave as soon as they were done. Now, that all seems fair enough, I suppose, but Jason isn't happy. He wants to finish what they started here, and he can't do that while these demons are around. In fact, these demons have been around for a while and haven't left. When Martin asks what exactly Jason and his flock are doing here, Jason explains that he and his flock wish to travel to the far beyond. Travel to it on rocket ships. Oh god. So, that's a thing. Martin doesn't question Jason. He just nods and smiles. Jason then asks if he'd be willing to head on down to the basement and purge the demons down there. Martin agrees to help and heads down to the basement. While down in the basement, Martin downs a little bit of liquid courage in the form of sunset sarsaparilla. He isn't sure what to expect down here, but he quickly gets his answer. It turns out these invisible demons were actually nightkin, a form of super mutant who uses a device known as a stealth boy. This stealth boy allows its users to become invisible, or at least really close to it. Most, if not all, nightkin are usually insane, which is a side effect of their constant usage of these stealth boys. Still, they offer up no resistance for Martin, who locked and loaded his fists of fury, and of course, Eddie, who shoots lasers all over the damn place. After exploring a little bit, however, Martin runs into a ghoul who's been trapped down here in the basement since this whole mess began. This is Harland, and Harland wants to get out. However, he knows he can't fight the Nightkin one-on-one, so he decided to just set up a defensive position here in this room. With our help, he can escape, but he won't leave. Not yet, not without his friend. If we can find his friend, Harland will then escape. Harland tells Martin that his friend was taken to a makeshift prison here in the building. Martin agrees to help him and heads off. As he explores a little more looking for Harlan's friend, Martin bumps into a non-hostile Night King. The Night King, at first, wants to kill us, but his master, Antler, tells him not to do it, but rather asks him to ask us what exactly we're doing down here. Martin glances around the room quickly and asks the Night King who Antler is. The Night King gets rather upset with the question, but explains that Antler is Antler, and Antler is their leader. Martin continues to glance around the room looking for whoever this person is when he quickly spots the skull of a Brahmin and begins to connect the dots. Martin can clearly tell that this Antler person doesn't actually exist, but is part of the psychosis induced by the Stealth Boy side effect. He feels it's best not to press the subject further, but continue to just play along. Martin tells the Night King his name, and in return, he tells Martin his. This is Davison, and he was once the captain of a group of Night King back when the Master was still around. Davison repeats his question, asking Martin why he is here. Martin tells him that he's down here on behalf of the ghouls. Antler already told them to stay upstairs and that they'd leave when they were done. This we already know. What we don't know is why the Night King are even here in the first place. Well, it turns out Davison led a group of Night Kings here in search of a massive shipment of Stealth Boys. This shipment was supposedly delivered here before the bombs fell. However, after searching, the Night King couldn't find them, but what they did find was a terminal that would tell them where in the building this shipment was. The only problem is that terminal is located in a room with a ghoul who's been snipping any Night King who enter within. Davison promises if we can help them find the shipment, he and his Night King brothers will leave. Martin agrees to help and exits the room. So now we're at a bit of a crossroads here. The Night King have halted Jason and his Flux progress on their rocket ship. Davison won't leave without the Stealth Boys because he can't access the terminal because of Harlan, and Harlan won't leave because he wants to find his friend. Now, this is where I must break the story, and sadly, this will not be the last time. My game completely bugged out at this point. I won't go in depth with what exactly happened, but let's just say a lot of weird things happened, and I couldn't quite make the right progress and had to skip part of the story. I didn't get any of it on camera, which is really annoying. I'll get back into more depth about that later. But let's just say, for the sake of story, that the Night King got what they wanted. They were happy, they left. Harlan's friend was already sadly dead, and he went back to the ghouls upstairs. Martin returned to Jason and his flock victorious, and Antler turned into a giant mecha version of himself and did battle with the Novac town mascot, Dinky the Dinosaur. Okay? Okay. Jason was pleased with Martin, and he and the rest of the ghouls went back to work on their rocket ship. Chris, the ghoul, and lead scientist of the project, was able to get the last of the issues with the rocket fixed, and they were finally ready to take off. However, Jason chooses this very moment to tell Chris he isn't actually a ghoul and can't come with them because he died due to the level of radiation wherever they were going, and that he in fact was kind of using him for his scientific knowledge. Still, they turned him into a saint and will forever praise him in their wild, wacky religion. Saint Chris was without a doubt upset with this turn of events, but agrees to help them. Martin tells him that he could always just go to Novac and help the people there. He agrees and tells Martin to head outside and do the most important job of all. He gets to press the button. Martin then gets to witness the launch of the rockets, which goes... it goes well. And with that, Jason and his flock go... somewhere? Hopefully to the far beyond, and Martin heads back to Novac to update Manny on the good news. Manny is without a doubt happy to hear that the issue has been resolved, and promises to tell Martin what he knows about the man in the checkered suit, and the great cons that were with him. Benny. That's the name of the guy who shot us and stole the chip. The man in the checkered suit. He and the Great Khans went north to a place called Boulder City. We now have a name to the face and a new location, so Edie and Martin set out north across Route 83 towards Boulder City. Watch out, Benny! The lone duo is on its way. This place was once a thriving city, but due to the events of the Battle for Hoover Dam, in which the NCR and Caesar's Legion fought control over the dam, the town was sacrificed to destroy some of Lisa's sieges. Can I just go one video without making a mistake? I just want to read flawlessly. But I can't do it. The town was sacrificed to destroy some of Caesar's best legionaries. They were lured into the town by the NCR troopers, and once inside, they blew up the town. Many brave men and women of the NCR lost their lives in the fight, and a memorial was built to honor them. These days, the city is mostly empty and not many people pass through it. Still, this was for sure the last known whereabouts of Benny and the Khans. After Martin drank about 1,000,000 sunset sarsaparillas that were weighing him down, he got to work exploring the ruins of Boulder City. A member of the NCR stops Martin and explains that they have a bit of a situation. It turns out the city is on a bit of a lockdown because some of the Great Khans have taken a few people hostage. Nobody is getting in or out until the situation has been resolved. Martin explains that these Great Khans have something that belongs to him, the platinum chip. And maybe he could just go in there and deal with the situation, maybe even rescue the hostages. The man looks Martin up and down and shrugs. He tells Martin that the moment they rush into the place, those hostages are as good as dead, so he might as well just let Martin go in and deal with the situation. Martin thanks the man and lets out a massive delayed burp, which scares the absolute circuits out of Eddie. He rolls his sleeves up, puffs up his chest, and heads inside. As soon as Martin enters the building in which the Great Khans have held up, their leader, Jessup, can't believe his eyes. He knows exactly who we are. Martin pretends to be a ghost to freak the man out, but it doesn't work. Jessup wants to know what we want. Martin tells Jessup to hand over the platinum chip, but Jessup explains that he doesn't have it. Benny does, and he isn't here. He screwed over the Khans and left to the New Vegas Strip. Martin levels up in anger and tells Jessup to tell him what he knows about Benny. Benny is the leader of a group known as the Chairman, who apparently run a casino in New Vegas called The Tops. Other than that, Jessup doesn't know anything more about Benny. Martin slowly nods his head, but thinks to himself that at least he knows where Benny is. After that, Martin tells Jessup to let the hostages go and give up and leave Boulder City, and you know what? He agrees. Eddie would later write in his autobiography, I Am Eddie, A Look Behind the CPU, that, and I quote now from his book, maybe it was the look in Martin's eyes, or his extreme jitteriness due to the vast amount of sunset sarsaparilla consumed thus far, but Jessup caved into Martin's request. I personally believe that it was neither one of those things. I believe the comment about being a ghost really did spook Jessup, so much that he actually believed it to be true and peed his pants a little bit out of shame. And he just did whatever Ghost Martin said. Truly inspirational words right there. However, the truth is, we'll never really know what happened to make Jessup do what Martin said. Some say it was fear. Others say it was Martin's ability to pass a level 45 speech check. Whatever the case may be, Martin saved the day and walked off into the sunset, a hero to the NCR, and to a lesser extent, the Great Khans. Martin walked towards New Vegas as night began to fall. Victor rolled up to Martin, and that's right, our old robot pal, he's back. He cracks a joke and makes a bit of small talk, but he said that he saw what we did a little earlier and told Martin not to worry too much about Benny because he's all hat and no cattle, whatever that means. After that, Victor rolls off towards New Vegas. Martin takes a quick moment to watch the glow of New Vegas in the distance. He now knows 100% where Benny and the Platinum Chip are. It's time to cash Benny out. The gateway to the Strip was right in front of Martin, and as he approached the gate, a Securitron robot stopped him, asking him to submit to a credit check. Martin had nothing to worry about. He had plenty of caps in his pocket. The robot let him past, and Martin continued forward, moving past the dead body into the Vegas Strip. The neon lights glowed and hummed. The music blared through speakers on the street. People were talking and stumbling around. This was the New Vegas Strip, all right. Martin didn't have much time to take in the sights. In fact, he had exactly 7 seconds before Victor, our old robot pal from Good Springs, rolled up on Martin again. Victor welcomed us to New Vegas and told us that somebody named Mr. House wanted to meet with us in a casino called the Lucky 38. Sadly, Victor tells Martin that old Eddie can't join us and we'll have to leave him behind. Eddie bleeps and bloops and flies away. Sadly, I don't have the New Vegas DLC, Eddie's Wild New Vegas Night, installed, so we'll never know what kind of crazy things he gets up to when Martin's not around. With Eddie left behind, Martin steps into the Lucky 38. The place was empty. Stale, musty odor filled the air, and a thin layer of dust was on everything. Martin wondered how long it had been since anybody was inside this place. He continued forward up the elevator to the penthouse floor. There, he saw a giant monitor with an image of a man's face on it, and as he got closer, a voice spoke to him. This is Mr. House, the reclusive owner of New Vegas. He welcomes us to his casino and treats us rather nicely. House explains that he's the owner of the Platinum Chip, and before we got shot in the head, we were supposed to deliver it to him. However, his protege Benny betrayed him, and we know the rest of the story. House wants his stolen property back and doesn't care what happens to Benny. He's even willing to pay us a very large sum of caps to bring him the chip. Martin agrees to help Mr. House and heads over to the tops. The casino Benny and his group, the chairman, run. Once inside the tops, Martin very quickly spots Benny in his checkered suit. That's one man Martin will never forget. As he approaches Benny, he goes white in the face and his eyes widen. He's at first a loss for words, but very quickly composes himself. Martin cracks wise and jokes that Benny needs to work on his aim. Benny, surprisingly, fires back and says that he had indeed hit what he was aiming for, but Martin is just thick-skulled. Touché, Benny. Touché. Benny tries his best to smooth over the situation by giving Martin a free room in his casino, but Martin doesn't much care for that. It's pretty hard to truly apologize for shooting somebody in the head. Still, Martin accepts the gift and tells Benny that they need to talk about House and the platinum chip. Benny pauses for a moment, clearly weighing his choices, then tells Martin to go up to his new room and after a while he will join him. But Martin isn't in the mood and tells Benny that he'll agree, but he wants to talk now and without Benny's guards around. And, to Martin's surprise, Benny agrees and the two take the elevator up to Martin's new room. Once alone, Benny can't contain his curiosity anymore and asks Martin just exactly how he survived. Martin tells Benny the truth, that Victor dug him out of the shallow grave and took him to a doctor. Benny frowns as he now fully realizes Mr. House knew from the start that Benny had betrayed him. When Martin asked exactly what the platinum chip is, Benny tells Martin that it's the key to House's true plans, to rule over all of New Vegas. It's meant to somehow boost the Securitron's power and give House an edge, the edge he'll need to fight off both the NCR and Caesar's Legion, should they ever come to New Vegas. Benny also knows that the chip is actually a storage device and has no idea how to access the data because no terminal can read it. Martin then asks Benny what exactly he was hoping to do with the chip, and why he went to such great lengths to betray Mr. House, shooting me in the head and stealing the platinum chip. Benny holds nothing back and lays down all of his cards. He wants to change the management of New Vegas, kick House out, and rule over New Vegas himself, turning it fully independent. He wanted the platinum chip to take full control of the Securitrons, and at the same time, make them more powerful. He does seem somewhat remorseful for shooting us back in Good Springs, but Martin can't tell if he's being truthful or not. He is a sly one, that Benny. Still, Benny looks Martin in the eyes and clearly and coldly states that House, the NCR, or Legion would have killed without question themselves to get their hands on this chip. Anybody would. After that, Martin asks Benny to hand over the platinum chip because House wants it, but Benny refuses and instead asks Martin to betray House and come work for him instead, and together they can rule New Vegas. Martin refuses the offer and Benny stands to leave. He looks Martin in the eyes and tells him to just think about it. As Benny walks towards the exit and Martin has a quick think about it, Martin walks up behind Benny and punches him to death. Martin's long Mojave journey was now more or less complete. He takes the platinum chip out of Benny's pockets, makes the death look natural, and goes to exit the building. But before leaving, Martin stops and thinks that maybe checking Benny's room for more answers would be smart. He could have been holding something back. In Benny's room, Martin stumbles upon a strange Securitron that gives a whole new meaning to the word helpful. This is Yes Man, a reprogrammed Securitron that was Benny's partner in crime. Yes Man will more than happily answer any question anybody asks him. Yes Man explains that it was him who gave Benny all the information about the platinum chip, Mr. House, and more. He does this by tapping into Mr. House's transmissions in terminals. Yes Man then explains to Martin that the platinum chip's data can only be accessed at either the Lucky 38's casino or a strange underground bunker at a place called Fortification Hill. However, Fortification Hill just so happens to be directly above Caesar's Legion's current camp. When Martin asks Yes Man to tell him more about what Benny was planning, he explains that Benny wanted to kill House and upload Yes Man's neural matrix to the Lucky 38's mainframe, thus giving him full control over everything House did, including the Securitrons. With Benny now dead, Yes Man tells us that we should pick up where Benny left off and take over New Vegas for ourselves. Martin looks down at the platinum chip in his hand and looks back up at Yes Man and tells him that that's a good plan. Martin will take control of New Vegas, so nobody else can have it. Not House, not the NCR, and especially not Caesar and his Legion. Yes Man seems excited about the idea, well, he seems excited about everything, and tells Martin that in order to take control, there are a few things that he would have to do. First, kill Mr. House, since he is the biggest threat to the plan, and without access to his mainframe, we won't get far anyways. Second, to check out the bunker at Fortification Hill, which means dealing with Caesar's Legion. Third, avoid angering the NCR in any way, shape, or form. And finally, fourth, deal with any other faction in the Mojave Wasteland that might oppose us, while at the same time gaining allies to deal with the upcoming battle between the NCR and Caesar's Legion at Hoover Dam. Because as each day passes, the second battle at Hoover Dam is looking like it will indeed happen. And we've got a lot of work to do to rule New Vegas, and it's time to start. And that's the end of the story. Remember when I said earlier about Daggerfall ending abruptly, and that this one would end abruptly? Well, this is that moment. The game had, well, a game-breaking bug, and I was completely unable to finish. I'll bring this up in greater detail in the gameplay section of the video, but very quickly for people who aren't aware, which I imagine is a very small number of you, New Vegas had a very rough 18-month development cycle, which caused the game to be problematic at times. Bugs and glitches riddle this game and can sometimes cause serious issues, and that was the case for me. After this point in the game, I left the Tops Casino and was going to go ahead and do the DLC missions now and a few other side missions and achievements just for fun and then continue the story. A lot of it was just mindless busy work and I didn't record a lot of it. I was having a lot of fun in New Vegas. When I went to resume the story by speaking with House to get the next mission, which allows me to go to Fortification Hill, something odd happened. House asked me to come back when I had the chip. At first I thought I picked the wrong piece of dialogue, or heck, maybe even booted up the wrong save file. But no, I was in the correct save file, and my mission still said, give the platinum chip to House. I then thought I totally forgot to take the platinum chip off of Benny's body while I was being silly for the video and, dragging his body all over the place. But no, his body was empty. Then I looked in my inventory, and to my horror, the chip was gone. There was just no chip. It turns out that at some point after leaving the tops, the game said, you know what? You don't need this key item, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that for you. I was staring down the barrel of another game-breaking bug, just like Daggerfall. I searched all over the internet for answers, but pretty much came up with nothing. There were a few people out there that had the same bug, but a lot of them just got replies like, did you, just forget to go to Caesar's camp at all? Because he steals it from you later on, but it was just a lot of replies like that, like, did you go to Caesar's Legion? Did you drop it? Did you forget it? Did you... whatever. I didn't see Caesar at all. Like I said, I had just left the tops. I just got screwed over. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, why didn't you just load up an old save file? The truth is, I saved over my save file and the backups because, well, I for one wasn't expecting the key item of the video game to just vanish, and two, like I had said earlier, I went off to do other things. I was about 40-ish hours into New Vegas at that point in the story, and when I came back to finish the story, I was now about 93 hours in. So, yeah, I saved over my save files. Still, I didn't want to leave everybody hanging. Again, even though I wager 98% of the people watching this video have already put countless hours into New Vegas and can speedrun the whole damn thing using a Guitar Hero controller with a blindfold on, I still didn't want to leave everybody hanging. What I did was use command consoles to just spawn the platinum chip into my inventory. That was the problem solved, right? Well, no, sadly not. Because the game once again bugged out. I went to House, showed him the chip, the game said, great, let's update your quest, now go to Fortification Hill. But I couldn't gain access to Fortification Hill. I don't know why, I just couldn't. And when I did gain access to Fortification Hill, all of Caesar's Legion was just hostile towards me. They were freaking out. I don't know why. I didn't piss off the Legion in any way, shape, or form. In fact, that's the whole point. You get like a free pass so you can speak with Caesar. But when I got there, they were just freaking out. It doesn't matter. The entire main story from that point onwards was 100% broken and bugged out. And after 2.5 hours of me messing around and trying to roll back my saves, spawn items in, or just, console command complete quests, I threw in the towel. I'm sorry. However, I promise to make it up to you here and now. My promise to you is, I will return to Fallout New Vegas, and next time, I will have the game modded to hell and back, so this will never happen again. Martin's Mojave Wasteland adventures will continue again. Look, I'm going to be totally upfront and honest with you. I personally don't feel I'm qualified to talk about the game's story since I didn't actually finish it for this video. But I have finished the game before, and I do remember that ending. Or at least the ending I was going for in this game, the Yes Man ending. I was gonna do the NCR ending, but I'll get back to that. I actually really rather enjoy the story of New Vegas, and I think it starts off super duper strong. I mean, for goodness sake, you're shot in the head and survive. Now, if that ain't a cool opening, I don't know what is. In fact, it actually helps with role-playing. You can, if you want, go ahead and pretend the bullet gave you amnesia, or you could just pretend like nothing happened. You were just shot in the head, you still remember everything. Good Springs acts as a tutorial for the player, and I think it actually pulls it off quite well. It is a tutorial, and tutorials can be boring, but I still think it pulls it off really well. You'll learn all the basics of gameplay, how all the factions interact, and the consequences of any future actions with them. It doesn't fully hold your hand, but acts more like a vigilant father teaching their child to ride a bike for the first time without training wheels. At that point, you've got freedom to do whatever you want. You could follow the story and go to Primm, follow Benny's path, or you could actually ignore that and head directly north to New Vegas. Nothing is stopping you at that point. Well, aside from the super powerful enemies at the very beginning, but hey, if you want to ignore the Good Springs tutorial and go that way and fight those enemies, go ahead and do it. That's freedom. I mean, sure, you'll more than likely be killed, but again, it's like a father watching the child. You might fall and hurt yourself, but you'll still learn a lesson. The game won't force you to really do anything, but it suggests the correct path. If you follow that path, you'll begin to see how well the story is constructed. It doesn't throw everything at you all at once. It slowly shows you all the factions, themes, and information. At Primm, you'll learn all about the NCR and their troubles, but at the same time, you'll learn how they're viewed within the Mojave. Did their presence help or hinder the people here? What do you think about it? If you go further down the road, you'll see the problems the NCR faces, and after that, you're introduced to Caesar's Legion. Much like the opening of the game, I feel the very first contact with the Legion is amazing. It's powerful. You're given everything you need to know about them right there, right then. But the game, if you're paying attention, doesn't actually paint them as the true villains. They're evil, to be sure, but are they actually right? Much like the NCR, the game doesn't tell you what to think. It only shows you the information and lets you decide for yourself. When I first played the game and walked into Nipton, I was horrified. I actually killed the Legion right there in town, and I continued seeing them as the true villains from that point onwards. And by the way, can I just quickly say, it's fantastic that the game just lets you kill them right there and then. Like, you don't even have to listen to the guy, or as they're walking away, you could just gun them down. I think that's fantastic, and the story remembers that as well. Freedom. Freedom! I love it. Anyway, on my second playthrough, I began to see them differently, which I was not expecting at all. I began to see them more as an extreme version of the NCR. I started to see the world in a different light after that point. Now, this, of course, is subjective based on your own personal worldviews. Some of us will see them as nothing but pure evil, which I totally understand, they are pure evil, but some of us will see them as the right course of action, no matter what they do. Still, seeing them in Nipton was a fantastic introduction to Caesar's Legion. After Nipton, and the closer you get to New Vegas, you'll start to be asked questions by the game. I mean, yes, you can miss or skip these moments, which are in the form of people and side quests, but if you take the time to look around after Nipton, you'll really begin to question what's right or what's wrong, not only for you, but the entire Mojave wasteland. Are the NCR right? Are Caesar's Legion terrible? Or is Caesar's Legion right? Or is somebody else right? That is a fantastic way to tell the story. It's you and your discovery that leads to those questions and answers. Eventually, the battle for Hoover Dam seems to be imminent, and you must pick a side. You can either choose to side with Mr. House, the NCR, Caesar's Legion, or Yes Man, which is basically your way. The game will give you different missions for each of those factions, but a lot of them are just copy and paste. Like, for example, if you pick siding with House, the NCR, or Yes Man, you must protect the NCR president from being assassinated. But if you choose Caesar's Legion, then you're the one doing the assassination. I really would have liked to see each faction have their own special quests, but it pretty much just feels like no matter what path you choose, only Caesar's Legion truly stands apart from the others. Still, that makes the game's ending rather tricky because there are actually 4 endings, and no single one of them is the true ending to my knowledge. I did do a little bit of looking around, but it seems like there's no canonical ending to this game. Still, I do feel like Fallout New Vegas has a strong story overall. It shines bright and stands tall when stacked up to the other Fallout games so far. Is the story perfect? No, it can stumble a little from time to time, but that's, I think, just down to the development of this game. Now, this is the point of the video where I would normally cover each of the DLCs and give it the old Lycan treatment, in which I turn it into some sort of audiobook, but I can't. Yes, that's right. More broken stuff. The truth is, I actually did play and finish, for the most part, all of the DLCs in order of Dead Money, Honest Hearts, Old World Blues, and of course the Lonesome Road. I took notes, recorded footage, and I thought everything was fine, but it wasn't. Almost all of the footage I got from the DLCs was broken in some way, shape, or form. I tried my best to write a story about each one and tried to find a way to make it all make sense with the footage I had. In fact, I wrote 30 whole pages, but truthfully, it broke me. I was so stressed out trying to find ways to make it all work and be happy, but I wasn't. I was never happy with anything I did, and ultimately, I deleted it all. All I have to say is this, and this is all I want to say, because I will be coming back and I will just talk about these then. But what I will say is Obsidian did a fantastic job with the DLCs in Fallout New Vegas. I liked the new locations and the feel of each one. Dead Money, I thought, was rather fun. I actually liked losing all my items and trying to scrounge around for something to help keep me alive. It kind of like, it takes you back to basics, do you know what I mean? It does, though, get easier with the ability to buy things, mostly food items to keep you alive, and sometimes the enemies can feel a little spongy, but overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the slow burn of the story, but a lot of it was ruined for me because a lot of this DLC was bugged out for me. And this wasn't the first time. I played it back on the PS3 and it broke. If I remember correctly, it like lagged like crazy and eventually forced me to reload an old save before doing the DLC. That's how bad it was. Oh, guess my cat's here now. Okay, what was I saying? Oh yeah, if I hear "the air tastes like copper" or "old world gold" one more time, I am going to throw myself out the window. Honest Hearts was something I enjoyed from both a lore and aesthetic point of view, But the entire story was over super quick and ends rather abruptly. The ending I got, which was to evacuate everybody, it ends so abrupt and anticlimactically that I reloaded an old save and picked the other ending just to see what happened. And while it did have a little more meat on the bone action-wise, it still wasn't very satisfying at all. I'm not 100% sure what I was exactly expecting, but the ending just kind of left me feeling down. I always felt like something was missing, not only in the ending, but the whole DLC. I couldn't quite shake the feeling that like a quarter of the content was just cut or removed or something. The new area, though, was rather nice to explore. Small, but nice. I enjoyed the new companions as well, but overall felt Honest Hearts was a little lacking and the weakest of all the DLC. Now, while Honest Hearts was the weakest, Old World Blues was the strongest. For me, I really dug the B-movie sci-fi appeal. I really Hello. Oh, you're ruining my takes. Now I'm gonna have to start everything all over again. What do you have to say for yourself? Oh my god. So opinionated. Jeez. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah. I really liked that B-movie feel and the sci-fi look. I really liked the jokes as well. Old World Blues never took itself seriously, and I loved it. The only downside I noticed, and keep in mind this could have just been a bug, but the enemies respawned really quickly. Sometimes I'd kill a bunch of areas, pop into a building, search it, pop back out, and notice that a ton of them respawned. Still, I loved my time with it, and I will never be able to look at my light switches the same way ever again. Yeah. If you know, you know. Now, as for the Lonesome Road, this one's a tricky one because I do love it. I really do. And it might just be me, which I know is partly true, but sometimes I really felt like the main villain, Ulysses, I really found him really hard to listen to. So much so that I actually had a hard time remembering what was going on. And this isn't the first time that I felt this way. I've played this 3 times in a row now, and I still have a hard time understanding the motivation behind his actions. I especially didn't like being forced down the NCR or Legion path, which I always seem to be forced. It's either one or it's the other. I've never found the choice to just say, you know what? I really don't care about both of those people. Do what you want. You know what I mean? Once again, it might... I know I've probably pissed a lot of people off, but it might just be me, and I accept that. And again, I do want to say, and I want to make it very, very clear, I do like this DLC. I'd still have to put it behind Old World Blues though, but just barely. I'm sure I've upset a whole host of you, and I do apologize, and I want to expand my thoughts deeper, but I can't because of all the lack of video footage and the fact that I'll just cover this again. And I'm sorry. I am sorry. I do like Ulysses though. Let me just clear that up once again. I want to clear that up, okay? I do like Ulysses. Okay. I know I quickly glossed over the DLC, and heck, even the main story, and I also know I keep bringing up the bugs, so it's about time I sat down and, well, I mean, I'm already sitting down, but you get the point. I'm going to sit down and talk to you about something that's already been talked about to death. So let's move over to gameplay and talk about those pesky bugs. Alright, strap in, because this is going to be a long and important one. Fallout New Vegas is broken. There's no nice way to say it. It's a great game, but boy oh boy is it broken at times. I encountered so many bugs, I stopped taking notes or recording them. Heck, I encountered so many bugs that there were times that something would happen and I wasn't sure if it was a bug or something that the game was doing correctly. Now, for full disclosure, I played Fallout New Vegas like I do with every game I play for this channel. As close to default as possible. I want to look at it for what it is, not for what it can be turned into. If I look at a game with mods installed, even something as simple as a texture pack can change a lot about the game. Mods can also break games or add problems which would have impacted the way I look at it. I didn't play Fallout New Vegas with mods. That was a mistake, a massive mistake. I wasn't joking when I said earlier in this video that making this video was stressful. And I know that might sound funny, but it's true. I actually lost sleep over it. I got writer's block because of it. I was so unhappy with the script and my progress on it. I wish I had installed a patch for this game. I really do. I played Fallout New Vegas for a total of 95.5 hours, and in that time, I had 47 crashes. I counted each one. That number doesn't include me forcibly shutting down the game, however. I didn't count that, but had I, I'm sure I could have easily added another 20 or so to the total. I know that this is all old news. Talking about the bugs in Fallout New Vegas is like pointing at the ocean, turning to your friend and saying, "Did you know that's wet?" I knew about the bugs going in, and in my infinite wisdom thought, it won't be so bad. Heck, it might even make for some funny content for the video. After my 14th crash, and I kid you not, 5 hours of lost gameplay because my closest quick save was corrupted, I thought to myself, maybe I should stop and install something. I'm wasting a lot of time on these crashes and the bugs. But no, that goes against the spirit of the channel, and I'll keep going on. I'll keep on keeping on. I wish I could slap my past self. That choice, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, but that choice ruined this video, and I truly believe that. If I had the time to go back and replay everything and just explain what happened, I would, but I had already invested so much time and effort, and it's all my fault, and I apologize. I truly apologize. The smart move would have just been to start again, but I didn't. But the crashes weren't my only issue. I had infinite loading screens that forced me to either shut down the program forcefully, or worse, hard crash my computer, which would cause me to lose not only the save file, but the footage I gathered as well. And that actually happened a lot in Dead Money. I did lose progress in Dead Money. I did get infinite loading screens a lot, or lag. Dead Money, out of all the DLCs when it came to bugs, that one got hit the worst, and I don't know why. I also had the classic enemy getting stuck bug. You know the one where the enemy's like, stuck halfway underground or in a wall or something. Explosives, for whatever reason, stopped working, and I do mean all of them, from dynamite to mini nukes. It wouldn't do anything, or it would just never deal the killing blow. They just had no health. I actually had to go in there and, like, punch them to death or shoot them or something, but the dynamite would never finish them off. This actually did fix itself, but I was already 60 hours deep at that point. What else? Various objects would appear in the world for just no reason. I'd get stuck in things or see weird shadows. The dog in Good Springs had its eyes pop out, which was... That was the first bug I encountered, and honestly, it was the funniest. It was genuinely funny, but... what else? There was a really odd one where all the characters would stop talking, and what I mean by that is, like, their sound files would just not play. Every other sound would play, just not their voices. And normally, it was fine. I just have to restart. But sometimes it would cause the game to begin lagging once the conversation started, and just keep lagging and lagging and dropping frames until it just hit like 5 frames a second, and then just lock up the game mid-conversation, causing me to do a hard crash and lose whatever progress I had. Normally it was okay because of an autosave, but still. Companions. Now this one's an interesting one. Companions would begin randomly attacking an NPC, which they didn't do anything. They just start randomly flipping out. I never got this one fully on camera. You can see it on screen. This is all I got. But I did capture Boone. That's one of the companions in the game, flipping out. At first, I thought it was because I was in faction armor. But no, for whatever reason, sometimes companions would just have like a mental break and just start shooting. It was actually so bad with Boone, in particular, I stopped bringing him with me. You might have seen him in the footage and then just disappear. That's why. And speaking of companions, this also ties into another bug in which Edie stopped attacking. Edie? I said Edie. Eddie! Eddie stopped attacking. This one did eventually fix itself at some point. I honestly don't remember when. I got so used to him not doing anything. But it did eventually stop. So there you go. Another strange bug was the NCR attacking me for no reason. Remember when I said that sometimes I wasn't sure if it was the game doing something that it was supposed to do, or if it was just a bug? This was one of those moments. I was doing missions for the NCR on the strip, and would exit one of their buildings when one of the troops would come up to me, tell me I'd pay for something I did, and then just start shooting, and all the NCR went hostile towards me, and I couldn't keep going because they were all flipping out and the NCR hated me, so I'd have to reload, and then it happened again, and then after that I just became too paranoid and tried to give the entire NCR as big of a berth as I possibly could. In fact, this was the reason I stopped doing the NCR's main story. I was gonna go with the NCR for the ending, but this stopped me, and so I did Yes Man instead. Of course, there was the big one with the platinum chip, and I won't go into it again, but yeah, this was the true moment I realized how badly I messed up, and I couldn't course correct. It was just off the rails from then on afterwards. Now, once again, this was a small sample of the bugs I encountered. I had so many more, but I just stopped caring. My eyes glazed over each time something happened. If the game set out to break my spirits, it absolutely worked. At the end of the day, this, oddly enough, didn't ruin my enjoyment of the game. I mean, it did, but the fact I kept going on and I just couldn't stop playing New Vegas is just proof enough that I was still having fun with the game. Maybe I was unlucky. Maybe it was just the game. Heck, maybe it boils down to the fact that with each passing year, older games struggle to run on ever-increasing modern hardware and software. Maybe it's a combination of everything, but I'm gonna say this, and say it clearly so anybody who is still thinking about playing New Vegas without mods. Don't. Just don't. Play it with the unofficial patch at the very least. Do not put yourself through the pain. Unless you enjoy pain, in which case, knock yourself out, pal. Have fun. Have fun! With the bugs well out of the way, let's chat about character creation semi-quickly. Now, if you've been following along on my little romp around the Fallout wasteland, you'll be 100% familiar with how character creation works, because it's pretty much the same as Fallout 3, so I won't go over it again. What changed, though? Well, two things, at least off the top of my head. We now no longer have big guns and small guns, they got combined into just guns. And Outdoorsman makes a sort of return to the franchise in the form of survival. Now, I actually remember disliking the change from big and small guns into just guns when I first played the game. For some reason I felt like it crushed my sense of freedom in some weird way, but you know what? I have completely changed my mind, and I actually like the change. Why? Because weapons require an additional skill to use them correctly, and that is the strength requirement. Now, from what I remember, Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 had this requirement, but Fallout 3 removed it entirely, which is something I forgot to cover in the video. But Obsidian brought it back for New Vegas, and I feel like it balances out the fairness, I guess you could say. At the end of the day, a gun is a gun, no matter how heavy it is. I could sit here and debate the change, but honestly, like I said, I don't mind it, and it doesn't bother me. Yes, it does give you less things to spec into, and thus makes you even more overpowered, but they added in the survival skill, which balances that out as well. Now, one might argue that this skill, the survival skill, is kind of pointless, but I counter that with, why, pal? Why? Do you not like to cook food? You okay? Yes, that's right. You can now cook up meals in Fallout New Vegas with the help of the survival skill. Now, yes, you can still cook without it, but the higher you go in it, the more food you can make. I like the survival skill. Now, New Vegas has other changes to the levels and skills, but like I always say, I'm not smart enough to get into all the changes. Now, what I will add, however, is much like the survival skill letting you cook, repair lets you craft more gear and items at workbenches. This is good because Fallout 3's crafting felt empty. So empty, in fact, I almost never used it. But in this game, you can make bullets and armor and auto stim packs, and there's a lot to... and belts as well for some reason. I never understood. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but anyway, repair got a major buff, and I'm thankful for it. However, there is one major change from Fallout 3 to New Vegas, and that is perks and traits. Now, for those of you who aren't aware or just need a really quick refresher, I wasn't a big fan of Fallout 3 removing traits and turning them into perks. And I especially wasn't a fan of perks being given to you every single level. Obsidian must have felt that way because they scrapped that. Traits are traits once again, optional little buffs and debuffs you can pick at the start of any game, giving your character a more of a unique feel. He's more you, whatever you want him to be or her to be. In all honesty, I like traits. I don't really use them, but I like the option that they're there. But I did pick one particular trait for this run, and that's Wild Wasteland. This trait was made in response to the fan base being sort of divided on how they felt about the the increase to humor from Fallout 1 to Fallout 2. Basically, Wild Wasteland, if you pick it, adds in Easter eggs and funny moments while you're out exploring the Mojave Wasteland. I love this addition, I really do. It lets you, the player, pick how you want your experience to be. Sometimes you might like it, sometimes you might not. It's your choice. You got the power! Yeah! Dun, dun. Sorry, anyway. Now, as for perks, well, the ability to pick one every single level is now gone. You get to pick one every second level. This strikes a nice balance because in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, you picked one every third level. In Fallout 3, it was every single level, and now in Fallout New Vegas, it's every second level. It keeps you waiting, but not too long, and I always found myself thinking ahead, like leveling up, picking a perk, and thinking to myself, alright, next level is nothing, but after that I think I'll go for whatever perk. I love that change. Overall, I think a lot of the changes, both those I brought up and those I didn't, are changes for the best. It strikes a good balance between new school and old school, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Next, I want to talk about... Okay, I was gonna talk about companions next, but I'm looking over at my little list here, and one thing is staring at me. The font is bigger, it's bolder, and pal, is it underlined. So, I think I need to rip it off like a band-aid, or plaster, if you're living in the UK. Let's talk about... Oh, heaven help me. Let's talk about Caravan. Now, I'm no stranger to card games. Oh, heavens no. I loved me some Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, Gwent, Slay the Spire, Magic the Gathering, or, more specifically, the 90s video game version of Magic the Gathering, commonly referred to as Chandala. Please, GOG, I know nobody's working, I know nobody's gonna listen to this, but please, GOG, I don't know what hoops you have to jump through to get the ability to sell this game, but please, jump around. Jump, jump, jump up, and get down. Please, I beg of you, please bring Chandala to GOG. Oh, please, please. Anyway, I digress. What I'm trying to say here is Caravan is wild. Even though I read through wikis, watched videos, and had to play at least 30 games to get the achievement, I still don't think I know how it works. So, the rough, and I do mean rough, gist of the game is pretty much to reach the number 26 on each of these caravans. You do this by laying down numbered cards from ace, which counts as 1, to 10. You don't want to go over 26 or under 21. So, you're looking to bid between 21 and 26. You can, of course, mess around with your opponent's numbers or boost your own chances with kings, queens, jokers, and jacks. Each of these cards has an effect on either you or them. For example, a king will double the value of a card. 2 will become 4, 6, 12, 10, 20. And you can add this to you or to your opponent, forcing them to either go over 26 or whatever. You can just screw them up. But even if you hit the sweet spot of 26 on each of your caravans, you will still lose. Or heck, sometimes you won't even win the game instantly. And that's where some of the cracks start to form. Now, once again, I'm no pro. I'm 100% positive there are perfectly valid reasons and rules why sometimes you just don't win the game, even if your opponent cannot catch up. What those rules and reasons are, I have no idea. Maybe there's not enough clouds in the sky above your house. Maybe there's, I don't know, you're not wearing enough socks, or you're wearing too many socks. I don't know what the reasons are, but I'm sure there are reasons, and I'm sure somebody will tell me those reasons, but I'm still not gonna understand them. And no offense, don't try. Don't try. I don't understand, and I never will. I'm an idiot. Spoiler alert. Spoiler, oh, I ruined my whole story. I'm an idiot. Anyway, all I ever hear is people talking crap on this game. And listen, I'm right there with you. I really don't like Caravan, and I don't think it's well explained in the game or outside at all. I do think it's broken, and sometimes I just don't like it. However, what I will say is that there is a good card game here somewhere. Somewhere here. I like card games. I'm not the best at them, but I still have fun with them. And I do catch myself having fun, or something close to fun, when playing Caravan. But it feels broken, and that's what keeps it from being a good game. Like I said earlier, you'll have a winning hand. You'll lay down everything perfectly and still not win. And then the AI will let your opponent win instead. And you'll just be sitting there like, what just happened? Nothing is clear. Even when you think you understand it, you don't. You might like Caravan. You might even love and understand it. But I don't. And it seems like 70% of the people who have ever played Caravan in Fallout New Vegas don't understand it as well. And if the number is that high, there's a problem. Sure, you can cheese the game. So this is a cheese if nobody knew this. You cheese the game by picking only 6s, 8s, 10s, and kings. As many of them as you can. But even with that cheese, you aren't assured 100% victory. Caravan isn't a bad game. Like I said, there really is something good here. A good game is here somewhere, but it never ever feels right. It never feels like you've won because of skill or luck. It just feels like the game picks a winner at random, which might count as luck, but you get what I'm saying. It needed far more work done on it, and while it was in development. And that's not just me saying that. That's the game director saying that, Joshua Sawyer. He said the same thing. I know they wanted it in, but I don't think it should have been in. It should have been clear it wasn't up to par and had too many bugs and flaws and you could cheese it, and they should have just scrapped it. They genuinely should have just scrapped it. I don't hate Caravan. I just don't like it. I wanted to like it, believe me, but I just couldn't. Anyway, if you think my thoughts on Caravan seem hard to understand, this stream of words, well, now you understand what it's like to play a game of Caravan. It's just confusing. Anyway, let's move on to companions now, shall we? If you've been following along on my Wasteland adventures thus far, first of all, thanks, pal. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to hang out with me. And second of all, you'll know I have a few complaints about the companions in Fallout. Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 were tactical RPGs focused on taking turns, moving around the battlefield, and plotting the best course of action. The companions in that game made their own choices, and I wasn't a fan. I wanted full control of them, like I did with the player character. Story-wise, they were bare bones. You got the gist of what they stood for and their backstory, but overall they were fine. Fallout 3 changed the genre fully and became a first-person / third-person shooter RPG game. It became an RPG game, but it was in the third and first person. Companions changed to match this, but you still had no control over them. And when it came to personality, they weren't fully fleshed out. You pretty much knew what they were all about from the get-go. They did have some meat on the bone of their backstory, I guess you could say, and personality, but not that much. Fallout New Vegas, on the other hand, is pretty much the same as Fallout 3. But this time they've been fleshed out fully. They have their own stories, likes and dislikes, different levels of friendship with you. The more you hang out with them, the more they grow and or open up to you. The companions in Fallout New Vegas are some of the best in the franchise so far. Sure, you can't fully rely on them, sure, but I do love talking with these guys and having them by my side. So, let's take a quick look at them, shall we? First of all, you've got Eddie, who is... He's Eddie. I don't think there's any backstory to this guy or anything. He's just there. I mean, in the DLC Lonesome Road, you do get a companion who looks and sounds and acts like Eddie, but he isn't Eddie, but he kind of is Eddie, but he kind of isn't. They are separate entities, separate Eddies, sort of. Eddie is going to be more than likely your first companion. He's loyal, doesn't care what on earth you do, who you kill. He's a blank slate. He's whatever you want him to be, sugar. To be perfectly honest with you, he's actually my third favorite companion. Not sure why. I guess I just love projecting on companions and blaming them for my own mistakes and talking to them in my head. That sounds a little psychotic, but I guess I'm just psychotic. Boone is a grizzled, cold, blunt, stoic war vet. He'll hang back and snip enemies from a distance because he's a snipper. He hates Caesar's Legion with a burning passion and will shoot any of them on sight no matter what. Boone will more than likely be your second companion. And I hesitate to say that, but he'll more than likely be your second companion. Now, as your second companion, Boone will show you that they do have their own unique traits and personality. Like I said earlier, Eddie doesn't care what you do. He'll follow your orders, no questions asked. Boone, on the other hand, does care what you do and will sometimes disobey you, like with Caesar's Legion. If you choose to help them, Caesar's Legion, he'll leave you without question. He wants nothing to do with them or people who do want anything to do with them. He'll even break stealth sometimes to gun them down. That's how much he hates them. I love this. It forces you to change your approach on things, and I think that's great. Now, as for his story, I didn't get to do it, and it ties into a few other issues I have with the companions, but I'll talk about that later. Let's just say I have a love-hate relationship with it. So, Boone is actually a good guy. I like Boone. Up next is Veronica. Veronica is quick-witted, sassy, and has a dry sense of humor, and is by far the most talkative of any companion, which may or may not be a plus for you. She's also excellently voiced by Felicia Day, but again, that may or may not be a plus for you. She, as I said, does a fantastic job voicing Veronica, but Felicia Day's character always tend to be just Felicia Day, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I do like Veronica, and normally bring her along, but since she's a close quarters fighter, and Martin was a close quarters fighter, I didn't want, like, the two of them colliding. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to, like, balance the team a little bit. So, once again, much like Boone, I can't tell you her story, because I didn't get the chance to do it. I do know her story. I know all their stories, but still, I didn't get to do it. And again, I'll bring this up later. Next is Cass, or Rose of Sharon Cassidy. And yes, That is her full name. That is her actual name. She is the daughter of Cassidy from the second game, which is actually really nice. She's a rough and tough ex-Caravan driver whose idea of a good time is getting drunk and getting it on. Other than that, she's also the type to shoot first and ask questions later. Now, her story is triggered after recruiting her. It turns out the X part in ex-Caravan driver it's new. She used to be one up until a few weeks ago when her entire caravan was ambushed and wiped out. She wants the player character to travel around with her, learning whatever she can until she eventually learns that, well, she was set up. Now, how you deal with that setup is up to you. You can either do what she wants, which is a wholesale slaughter, or get proof and turn it into the NCR. That's up to you. I never normally bring her with me, actually. Most of all because I actually forget she's in the game. You meet her pretty early on. In fact, remember when I said Boone will be more than likely your first companion? Well, she would actually technically probably maybe be your first. It requires a skill check. I normally never have enough skill points to convince her to come with me, so I tend to move on and continue the story and forget she's even there. So, she is a fun companion though, and you might like her. Next up, speaking of people who I actually totally forget is even in the game, let's talk about Arcade, who is voiced, by the way, by Zachary Levi. I had no idea until now. So, there you go, you learn something new every day. Now, I'm going to be totally real with you here. I'm not a big fan of Arcade. I know that might be sacrilege to some. I have no idea. But I actually didn't even know he was in the game for the longest time. If it wasn't for the achievement and trophy that requires you to recruit all companions, I probably would have gone my entire life not even knowing he was in the game. So, there you go. He's not a bad companion. If you like him, you like him. I'm just not a big fan. That's it. That's all. I always just felt like I was upsetting him for some reason. So there you go. I don't really have much to say about poor old Arcade. I apologize. I apologize. Next is Rex. Rex is a cyber dog and this game's version of Dogmeat. Sort of. He's oddly far into the game's story, and completely missable. In fact, he isn't even your dog. He belongs to the leader of the group known as the Kings. Rex is just sort of on loan to you. You meet him while doing a mission for the leader of the Kings, and it turns out the poor fellow is dying. Not the king, Rex. He has a problem with his brain, and it can't really be fixed unless you give him a brain transplant. It's actually an interesting mission because you can give him one of 3 different brains to save his life. Each brain will affect how he acts and what abilities he'll gain after the fact. He also, and I really love this, he also hates people who wear hats. There you go. I think that's really, really interesting. And he himself will actually hate you if you wear a hat. It doesn't really do anything. Like, it would have been cool if it did, like he refuses to go with you or something like that. But not really. He just hates people who wears hats. And if you talk to him while wearing a hat, he gets upset. I think that's really cool. Anyway, he's much like Arcade, and I honestly don't have a lot to say about Rex, so I usually just end up bringing Eddie along with me, like I always said, because you can have one human and one robot companion, and the 2 robots are Rex and Eddie, and I always bring Eddie with me. I don't know why. So there you go. Next up is Lily. Now, Lily is my second favorite companion. Lily, as you might clearly be able to see, is a nightkin, and as such is somewhat insane. She is by far the best at stealth, and is also one heck of a hard-hitting melee character. The only problem with her is when her health drops below a set threshold. When it drops, she goes berserk. I normally never encounter this because she tends to be a bit of a late game addition to your companion roster, I guess. And when I'm that late game, I'm already high in levels, and she tends to be stronger as well and never really drops below the threshold. So there you go. I don't know. If you get her early, it might be a problem. If not, yeah, I have no idea. Maybe you're like me and never have the issue. Now, Lily to me has the saddest story. One might argue Boone or the next companion might have the saddest, but for me, it's Lily, and allow me to explain. As I said before, Lily is a Nightkin, a super mutant from the Master's army. She was once a vault dweller who had a lovely life. In fact, she had a long, full, and rich life inside the vault. She married, had children, and eventually became a grandmother. Life was great for her. Until the Master's army bust open the vault door, dragging everyone outside, including her, and she was dumped into a vat of the FEV, turning her into a Nightkin. Her life after, and it was rough, as I imagine any super mutant's lives to be. What happened to her husband, children, and grandchildren, I don't think we're ever told. It might be in there somewhere, but she still remembers them. In fact, when you first meet her, she thinks you're one of her grandkids, which is sweet, as well as sad. But thanks to the FEV, her memories are scrambled, faded, or lost completely. Still, she can remember her grandkids and never wants to let go of their memory, because it's the one good thing that brings her joy and lets her remember a good life. Still, these memories also bring her sadness because she can't fully remember. You can choose to help her forget or continue remembering. Now, there is, of course, more to it than that. Those were just the broad strokes, but you get the idea. For me, her story is sad because it's something I never want to have happen to me. I don't want to forget myself or my life. I don't want to lose my sense of self. The idea kind of scares me. But it also scares me to know I've lost something, if that makes sense. Imagine waking up one day and meeting a person who explains to you that everything you've ever known was actually a lie, and who you are is somebody else completely, and you've just forgotten it. That scares me. I don't know why it scares me, but there you go. It's because of that reason that I find Lily's story the saddest one, so yeah. Anyway, it's not all doom and gloom, though. Lily is actually a really nice companion and treats you like a grandmother would treat a grandchild, and I think that's really nice. And now we move on to the final companion. My favorite companion, Raul Alfonso Tejada, voiced by the always awesome Danny Trejo. I've got nothing but love for this ghoul. I personally think he's the most fleshed out companion. He's got the snark and humor and the skills to pay the bills. His voice is awesome and his backstory is awesome, and his outfit, I mean, it's perfected perfection. If there was a word above perfect, I'd use that. In fact, I'll make one up right now. Raul's outfit is Venzo. TM. I could sit here all day rambling on and on about how Venzo Raul is in general, but I won't. The human mind can only handle so much Venzo before doing a Windows XP shutdown. So, in my humble opinion, I strongly suggest you go into Fallout New Vegas, find Raul, look into his eyes and say, "Raul, you're so damn Venzo," and you know what he'll say to you? "Whatever you say, boss." I can't do his voice. Anyway, sorry. Moving on. Okay. Earlier, I said I talk about one of my issues with the companions, and now's the time for me to get into that. And bear with me, because this is going to sound a little bit strange. Normally, I'm all about replayability. I love choice and freedom and so on. But I don't like it so much with these companions. You see, the trigger to most of their story missions are these invisible points you need to earn, and once you have enough of these points, it'll trigger their story, or at least particular beats of it. You get these points by either spending time with them, or bringing them to specific locations or people. Raoul, for example, you trigger his story by talking with particular people and exhausting their entire dialogue tree. Once you finish talking with said person, he'll pull you aside and ask if he can talk about something. Actually, he bugged out. He bugged out for me. I had to actually cheat it to make him know that I spoke to the person. But anyway, that's off topic. Sort of. Look, this is all well and good. I've got no real problem with taking them with me and going places, because that's the whole point of a companion. But people like Veronica and Raoul, for example, once again, using Raoul here, I brought him along with me, but after a few hours of adventuring, I was becoming confused why his story mission hadn't triggered yet. And that's because I picked him up late game. I'd already talked to the people that were meant to progress and trigger his story mission, which meant I had to go and look up who it was, backtrack, speak with the person all over again, but this time with Raoul with me, and then wait for him to bring up his backstory. And that bugs me. Now, you might love this, like this, hate this, dislike this, and that's fine, but it bugs me. If you're like me and explore the whole damn map before you've even started the first mission, you might encounter this same problem. I'm not a New Vegas pro, if that wasn't apparent enough. I don't know where every single hidden item is, or how to speedrun the story, which companions to get, how to get them early, who to speak with, and so on and so forth. I remember having this problem back when I first played the game for the first time, and never knowing why I couldn't trigger Boone's story in particular. It wasn't until this very video that I actually even learned about it at all. I had no idea Raoul had to speak with particular characters, or Veronica had to be brought to particular locations. I thought it was all just based on how much time you spent with them. I thought, like, every real-life hour or so it would slowly fill some invisible friendship bar until they're like, hey, you know what? It turns out I actually do like you. Like I said, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm dumb, I am dumb, but there you go. Companions in Fallout New Vegas are great. I love them. And yeah, while sometimes they can be dumber than my pet rock, I still love them. Speaking of my pet rock, where the hell is he? Oh well, I'm sure it's fine. Once again, much like Fallout 3, Inonzor returns to do a fantastic job making the score to this game. He's able to translate what's seen into music and match it perfectly. Fallout New Vegas feels and looks like a Western, and it sounds like one to boot. And if that isn't great, then I don't know what is. I will always say it, and will continue to say it. A great song is one you never notice. It's one that is able to blend in and add to the moment without driving you nuts. But it doesn't stop there. Oh no. Music from the original 2 games also make their way into this game, adding a light touch of nostalgia. And what's really brilliant, at least in my eyes, is they never overdo it. Those old school songs only play in select areas or moments. They aren't on repeat like the rest of the score, and that is fantastic. I love that touch. I can't praise it enough. Now that, of course, was just the score. How about those radio stations and the licensed music that goes along with it? Well, you'll be happy to hear, pun fully intended, that the licensed music here is stronger than ever. Of course, thanks to that little wrinkle called copyright protection, aka not allowed to have any sort of fun in videos, I can't play any of it for you. But the game has fantastic classics such as Ain't That a Kick in the Head, Jingle Jangle Jingle, Something's Gotta Give, Heartache by the Number, and of course, your favorite, I know you like it, Johnny Guitar. There's also Big Iron, which I actually really like this song, and if you like Big Iron as well, I strongly recommend listening to Johnny Cash cover that song. Brilliant. The licensed music is fantastic, and unlike my run in Fallout 3, I was actually able to fully enjoy the radio this time. Isn't that wild? Actually, I should probably bring that up. I didn't really put it across in the video, and looking back on it, I noticed it. I had a bug in Fallout 3 that made my radio music skip for some reason. I don't know why. It would just be like, you know, like it would like stop, if that makes sense. But this is the funny part. With all the bugs I experienced in New Vegas, I thought it was funny that that one didn't make it across as well. I was able to listen to the music brilliantly in this game, so there you go. I was just strutting my stuff down the Mojave wasteland roads, clicking my fingers and singing at the top of my lungs. Yes, sir, I may wish for a nuclear winter out here, but the radio makes it all worthwhile. Now, much like the main game and the DLCs, I had planned on giving you, all of you, like little mini stories of Martin's adventures during these side quests. Like, I don't know if you guys even like like listening to me turn things into stories or not. I have no idea. But that's what I had planned. I was gonna cherry pick a few side quests, turn them into little mini stories, and then just give you my thoughts like that. But thanks to all the bugs and glitches I encountered along the way, a lot of my footage was corrupted, so I'll keep this brief. Side quests in Fallout New Vegas are, in my opinion, where the game shines brightest. But why? Well, in every game, a good side quest will let you solve the problems of the fine folk in that world. You know, simple things like stopping one of the ugliest, meanest chupacabra you could ever imagine, or delivering 3 severed heads to a guy that you'd just been carrying around in your pockets because, of course you were. I guess I'm just psychotic. You've also got other good ones. I mean, don't get me wrong, those helping people is good, but helping yourself is better. And that's where collecting 50 Blue Star Sunset Sarsaparilla bottle caps come into play, because you will get the greatest treasure in the world, a Sunset Sarsaparilla Deputy badge. Can I get a yee-haw, partner? I mean, you also get some lame laser weapon called Pew Pew, but who cares about that when you have a deputy badge? Am I right, pals? Or am I right? Can I get that yee-haw now? In all seriousness, helping people is good and all, but where this game in particular shines really good is in that side quest world building. Through these side quests, you'll learn more about Caesar's Legion, the NCR, Powder Gangers, and all sorts of things. You'll learn how splintered and truly unorganized the NCR is, or that maybe Caesar's Legion has the right idea after all. Not that I'm saying they have the right idea or anything, you know, because that would just be crazy. Are they true to Kaiser? No, death to the profligates. I love the side quests in New Vegas. I really do. And I feel strongly that without a lot of these quests in the game, the world and the lore wouldn't be as strong as it is. I suppose that could be said of any game, but still. The second to last thing I want to talk about is hardcore mode. I had my own thoughts all lined up for this one, but I was super curious to see how all of you felt about the mode, so I put the question out there on my community page here on YouTube. I asked if all of you thought it was fine the way it was, or if you wished it was a little bit harder. And honestly, this wasn't as one-sided as I thought it was going to be. 70% of you said it was fine, and 30% of you wanted sand in their eyes and salt in the wounds. I was expecting it to be one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? Like 90% to 10, something like that. But I mean, these results surprised me. I'm not sure why. Not sure why. Now, how do I feel about this? Well, honestly, I wanted more. But that's if I was using my own voting poll. I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want here. So, the truth is, I wanted a blend between the two. And it seems a few of you actually did agree, at least from the comments part of it. Shout out to, and sorry if I screw all these up. Screwing up words is that's my specialty right here. So shout out to DM Welsh DW. There you go. Elbrew. Elbrew2223. There you go. Bacon at 12. Oh my god, yeah, I'd like a little bit of bacon. Guitar Dog. Shout out to you, pal, and the family. And I love bees. I'm not sure why they got rid of the usernames on YouTube. I don't know who's who anymore. I don't know who's who. It upsets me. I digress. I did want more out of it, but at the same time, what we got, I think needed a little bit of tweaking. It was fun at first, trying to manage all your health, hunger, weight, thirst, and so on, but you do reach a point where none of it matters anymore. You have more food than you could ever eat, more liquids than you could ever drink, especially thanks to the canteen, the old trusty canteen. In fact, that thing reminds me of a Australian kids show, a TV show where I grew up. It was called The Genie from Down Under, because of course. In one of the episodes, somebody makes a wish that the canteen they have never runs out of water. And every time I see that message about the canteen popping up, I always think of that show. I digress again. I wish food or water was way harder to find, and the only things you could eat or drink were the things that you could cook yourself. Like, I wish a lot of the Instamashes and Salisbury steaks and things just kind of like vanished from the game and became rarer. Just that way it forces you to scrounge around from the vegetation around the area. Pick more prickly pears and jalapeno peppers and honey mesquite pods, whatever the hell they were called. I can't remember, but that's the kind of thing I was kind of hoping for. One tiny gripe I have with not only this game, but almost every single game, is money. How many times have you heard an NPC beg you for help, promise a reward, and you go and do the quest and you get like 200 gold as the reward, but you take that 200 gold and put it in your pocket along with the 45,000 gold you already have and could never possibly spend? Now, I know that 70% of you will be shaking your heads when I say this, but I would have loved it if bottle caps were rare to find, and the only real way to make caps would be to do quests or find them rarely while scavenging around or selling items which are drastically lowered in price. And that's how you make your money. I want it to feel like a real wasteland survival, like all the NPCs say it is. They say it's tough, it's hard life, and so on and so forth. That's kind of what I was hoping for in hardcore mode. Hardcore mode is fun, and it can be refreshing. And yes, I'm 100% sure that there is a mod out there for the 30% of us who want it. But still, sometimes it becomes a little too easy. I didn't play it for this run, however. I did play it much earlier, and I do remember how it went. Now, whether we agree or disagree on it being harder or stay the same, I think we can all come together and agree and accept as fact that at some point we will all drink from the Holy Vault 13 canteen, whether we want to or not. Can I get an amen? The last thing I want to bring up has no real business being here in gameplay, since it really isn't gameplay, but at the same time, it is and has business being here because of achievements. And that is achievements. The game has them. I got them all. That's it. That's all. Just a humble brag. You know, just a little flex on y'all. Praise me now, please. Or sue me. Please don't sue me. I love you, okay? Besides, would you sue somebody wearing glasses? Would you? All jokes aside, and my massive rambling over, let us finally move into Fallout New Vegas has problems which stem from its hellish development. We could sit here and play the blame game, but the truth is, we are lucky to get what we got. This was something special. This is something special. Could it have been more polished? Yes. Could it have been bigger and better? Absolutely. Was it the actual sequel to Fallout 3, like, you know, Fallout 2, the actual Fallout 3 I was hoping for? Yes, actually. Was it the sequel, because it's not really a sequel, to Fallout 3 that I was expecting? Heck no, I wasn't. I was fully expecting more of Fallout 3. I had a fantastic time roaming around in this world, and no amount of crashes and bugs really did ruin it for me. It only ruined it for me when I realized how broken this video was going to be. Oh, I'm not lying when I said how stressed I was, or how little faith in this video I have. Oh, I feel like I not only let myself down, but you as well. And I do apologize for the millionth time for it. Even with the bugs, this game shines bright, and it's easy to see how this has become a top choice of any Fallout player. I failed to convey how well this game subverts expectations, how well it sets up the future battle at Hoover Dam, how each faction works and interacts with the world around them, and how the world interacts with them. This game does a lot of things right. Now, is this game flawless? No, no it isn't, but that isn't due to terrible storytelling or anything like that. It comes from, once again, the development. The game was made, as I said way back at the beginning, in a very, very short 18 months. Once again, we could play the entire blame game and say it was Bethesda's fault all along. But, I would argue that chances are it wasn't even them, but the parent company, ZeniMax. To my knowledge, Bethesda was actually working on Skyrim if you can believe it, Skyrim at the time, and had been since the end of Fallout 3. I'll bet ZeniMax saw the hype and profit and just demanded another game from Bethesda, only for them to turn around and say, "Oh no, we can't do it, we're busy, tell Obsidian to do it, we'll give them all the props and things to get started, but we're too busy working on Skyrim." I could be totally wrong. There might be an interview out there floating around in which Todd Howard or somebody else straight up said, "Yeah, we wanted money, we gave them the job, told them 18 months, and we want money." Look, I have no idea. I'm not here to point fingers, I'm not here to take sides. What I am here to do is to tell you that Fallout New Vegas is fantastic. It's not only a great Fallout game, but it's just a great game and fun on its own merit. I said this in my Fallout 3 video. I can't put into words what's wrong. It's just a feeling. I look around and I see the things like Nuka-Cola, vaults, names, locations, enemies, and more. I see those things and feel something's wrong. It's such a strange thing to try to explain. How can I translate a feeling to you? I can't. I stand by that. However, after playing Fallout New Vegas, I didn't have that issue of it not feeling like a Fallout game. This one does feel right, and again, it could be for whatever reason, I'm not sure, but it does feel right. Everything is here, and the joke is, it's still got Bethesda's DNA all over the damn thing. It looks like a Bethesda game, runs like a Bethesda game, and had I not known it wasn't a Bethesda game, would have thought it was a Bethesda game. I'm just saying, it's still got the DNA all over it, but it feels right. This is how a Fallout game in this style should be. This was the Fallout 3 I wanted. Fallout 3 was a good game, a fun game. It was a good Bethesda game, Oblivion with guns. I don't hate the game. No, not at all. And I'm sure as heck, I'm not gonna tell you that you're wrong for liking Fallout 3 over New Vegas, or the other way around. I don't roll that way. I don't roll that way. You like what you like. And even if you like something I don't, I'm not gonna hate you for it. I've always said games are personal. I like games that people friggin' hate, and I friggin' hate games people love. But I'm never gonna go and judge somebody based on that. Heck no. Fun is fun, no matter what. Should you play Fallout New Vegas? Yes, but only with mods. It could be my computer, it could be Steam, it could be a misplaced file, or Lord only knows what, but I 100% regret not stopping to install a mod to fix the issues. I needed a patch at least. I have no idea how vanilla New Vegas runs for you on your PC, but Lord in heaven, I'll never play vanilla again. I don't blame the game fully for the strangeness of this video. I blame myself fully. It is my fault. I failed, and I accept it. I need to return to Fallout New Vegas and give it the video it truly deserves. My own rules be damned. In fact, not only just New Vegas, but a lot of these games, like Morrowind in particular. I had so many requests to play that game again with mods, Skyrim as well. And you know what? I agree with you, and I'll do it as soon as I can. That much I promise you. I know chances are 95% of you are gonna roll your eyes and reply with, "Not duh, Lycan." But, for the love of all things holy, play Fallout New Vegas with mods. Okay, before I say my final goodbyes, and so on and so forth, let me say something important. I want to thank you. I want to thank the 932 of you who believe I earned your subscription. I'm sure that subscriber count is going to drop after this video. But it means the whole... Hang on, let me compose myself here because this is serious. It means the whole world to me that you believe in me. I want to bring you more videos that make you smile, but also entertain you as well. It's important to me to do that and always be honest and not be a cynical fool. So, once again, I thank you from the very bottom of my heart. You are Venzo, pal. You're Venzo. Never, ever forget that. Up next is my Fallout 4 video. I gotta work on that game, and truth be told, I've never actually finished Fallout 4 or done any of its DLCs for that fact. I don't even remember much about the game at all, and jokes, this is the funny part, I actually played it a little bit recently, and once again, didn't get too far before stopping. This time, however, I will finish it, I will report back to you, and talk about the strange new place called the Commonwealth. Until then, stay Venzo, pal. Oh, and actually, before I go, I'm sure you were wondering what game I think is better, Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas? And you know what? I think I will actually tell you which camp I fall into. Do I like Fallout 3 or do I like Fallout New Vegas best? My answer is, of course,